Hi, welcome to Hamilton and Hazen, Behind the Mic. Join author M.L. Hamilton and me, I'm narrator Kelley Hazen, as we discuss our latest audiobook. Born from our 7 years of collaboration and more than 60 audiobooks we've produced together, listen to the ins, the outs, the ups, and the downs, the inside track you love to follow, Behind the Mic.
Welcome to Behind the Mic, number 8. Today we're going to talk about the latest book that we've just released yesterday.
Yesterday, 4 days it took to get out.
Fast as it's ever been. This Cafe Mocha, one of the Zion Sawyer, the 7th Zion Sawyer book, and our 61st, I looked that up, our 61st collaboration together. And hi, Kelley.
Hi, Michelle. It's funny, we keep intending to do like some big thing, like a Facebook Live event or something, every time we hit like a marker. Like first it was going to be 25 and then it was going to be 30 or whatever. And now we're on 61. We had a chance where it could have been 60, but
I know. Life gets in the way.
Oh my God.
So for this one, it was over a year since our last Zion book. And this one we did, again, some innovative stuff. We brought some sound effects in, and we tried to make it more immersive, which I think was hugely successful experience with the sound effects, and keeping them as additions rather than, overshadowing anything. But go ahead.
Define immersive.
My experience listening to it, when I'm specifically talking about the fire scene, this book, just to kind of back up a little bit, this book takes place in October, and right in the middle of California fire season. I can't believe we actually have a designated fire season here, but we do, unfortunately. And wildfires come into Sequoia and created a disruption of their lives, which we all experience every year. Yeah.
What made you choose that? I mean, this book feels very personal to me from you. And it's I don't think it's your average run-of-the-mill cozy mystery. I think there's a lot more going on here. It's still cozy, in terms of what that, what that connotes. But when was the last time you heard that word? And I felt like the whole time I was recording it, I felt like that this was something that was coming from a place in you that was a lot deeper, not than anything, but just than the other Zions, let's put it that way. And is that true, or did I miss the mark on that?
No, I think with this one, it was the whole idea of every year, for how long now we've experienced this just devastating. I start dreading August through October, right? I think any Californian does. And I mean,
the heat in general has gotten almost unbearable.
Yeah. And we were directly affected with it. I mean, we had the ashfall here. We had days where the quality of the air was just horrific. And like you could chew, the air. I mean, that's just never a good sign. And watching, I've had family members repeatedly now in fire danger. A couple years ago, when the fire tore through Napa and Santa Rosa, we were struggling to find our family members that had been evacuated. And that was deeply personal because we weren't sure. And I happened to get a hold of a cousin through Facebook to find out where they were and if everything was okay.
Oh.
Thank goodness they didn't lose their homes, but they were very close and they were evacuated. And we had family that lived in Paradise. And as you know, Paradise is gone. So yeah, it's deeply personal. I think to any Californian, you can't help and to this time, it came down into near Pollock Pines where my brother used to live. So these are places we know, we've been to, we've, been a part of our lives forever, and they're gone. And Grizzly Flats, one of the places mentioned in the book, that city is gone. And it's devastating, and it's something that and it seems to be getting worse. It seems to be coming closer, and it seems to be affecting more of us every year, just in the terms of the disruption for our health and our safety. And I can remember going out in the car, had ash, covering it. It's just yeah, I think when you can write from a place where you've experienced these things, there's a more genuine feel to it. They always talk about write what you know. And I think in that regard, this is what all of us in California, know. You guys had fires very close to you. You were told.
There was at one point, this was several years ago, this was sort of when they first started getting really serious. From our backyard, you can see the San Gabriel Mountains, and up top is Mount Wilson, where all the radio towers are for all the television stations. And it's also where Mount Wilson is, where the Hubble telescope, Hubble was, first there. And it's just a wonderful place, and incredibly historic, not only to us and to California and to the Griffith Observatory where I worked for so long, but to astronomy and NASA and JPL and, the search for the stars in general. And the fire was right up there. We could see it from our backyard, and you could see the flames licking the hillsides and approaching Mount Wilson, the Mount Wilson Observatory. And it almost got it. And it was just, we stood there just, clutching our hearts and hands over our mouths. And I worked in Simi Valley last year, and or Silicon Valley, excuse me, right outside of Fremont, not far from you. And it was the Paradise Fire. We went into town, which was not paradise, but the smoke was so thick, you honestly could not drive more than 15 miles an hour, and the ash on the ground made it look like it snowed. And we were going to Whole Foods. We were there. I was, working, I was consulting with a private company there. And we went to get dinner at Whole Foods, and you couldn't see, and there was so much ash on the ground, it looked like it had snowed. And we finally got in the Whole Foods parking lot. We were driving so slowly, and there was a cab driver. And it was amazing because you would drive and, things would appear because smoke and, like a fog. And all of a sudden, this bumper of this cab appeared, just the next car that we were passing, trying to find a parking spot. And the cab driver was sitting on the bumper smoking a cigarette.
Oh my gosh.
Right? It just seemed like so
Such
what? Yeah, it was just, but it's like living on one of those off worlds. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, we went one time. We had gone to Sequoia National Park, and we were staying right outside. You can't stay in the park, but we were staying right outside the park, and we decided to go through Yosemite. It was right near Yosemite, and I can remember we were driving through Yosemite, and there was fire on the road as we were driving through. And I remember I had the boys in the car with me, and I said, I don't like this. I'm not liking this, and so that gave me that experience. And then seeing those experiences of the trees just going up like Roman candles, and driving through that and feeling that eerie feeling of like, what if we get somewhere and I'm not familiar with this road and we can't turn around or we can't get out, and what happens then? And that led to that scene that we're going to talk about now in Cafe Mocha, where Tate is walking down the freeway. And initially, I think you recorded it without any sound effects. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
You had the idea to go back and add in some of the fire sound effects. And
yeah, I've gotten to the point now where I don't like to. We've worked together for so long that I know you're going to hit me if there's any like weird thing, like big turnaround or anything that would somehow affect my recording. And so now when we record, I don't like to read too far ahead of where we're recording. And so my question to you at that point, as soon as I read that, and there's Tate, that is the primary, the hero of that chapter 5, and there's this sense that the fire is closing in on him, and knowing how you sometimes work, that there can often be several plot lines and plot points that you're going to develop. My question to you was, is this the chapter that stars the fire, or are we going to hear, is there going to be more of this later on? And we needed to establish that in order to determine whether or not putting on a fire effect or trying to add some kind of aural fire experience, because if it, more than, that's one of those things that, less is more, yeah. So once I established with you, Bruce, you want to join us? Once I established with you that we were going to do it, then became the notion of how we were going to do it. And here's my man.
I started burning the house down to get
Running around with the microphone.
fire good. So originally, do I talk now?
Yeah.
Okay. Originally, I didn't want to do it because I just didn't want to put any sound over Kelley's voice, because I thought she was acting it. I mean, I could hear the fire in my mind. So yeah,
That's
which
how
I
he
always do.
Anytime he doesn't want to do something, he always goes, well, you're acting it so good. I
Yeah.
just don't want to cover it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. This chapter is so good without me editing it. I think you should just I should not edit. So, but I found two good effects for fire. One was kind of a lazy one, and one was more active.
And where'd you get him?
Online.
Do we tell? Okay.
No, I made a fire. So it's a charred area in the backyard.
That's what happened to the backyard. Where's the dog?
So to finish this up quickly, so I had two channels of fire, and I listened to it in real time. It took about 3 or 4 goes to get, and you don't want to go, oh, what's that over there? You're like, so it had to
like
be
a blowtorch.
Yeah, I had my hair dryer ready. Oh, that's blowing. That's the Santa Ana's coming in with that. So I mean, I did it first and I didn't like it, and then I did it like 3 or 4 more times, but it was a volume thing. I just wanted something, it's the wrong word, but bubbling. The fires can bubble, just percolating in the background, just kind of, so it was tension.
Yeah.
And I just thought it created a good tension for that whole scene. It was a long fire, and normally we don't do something that long, but
Yeah. How long was it? Do you remember how long the scene was?
like 15 minutes or something.
Yeah, that's
Scene.
And
Yeah. a lot for an effect. And it was cool. He had these 2 different sounds, and then he would raise volume or lower volume on the different effects. And I thought
Just
it
like
was
that.
really, I mean, it was funny because we didn't know, and he didn't like it. Yeah.
didn't like it.
He didn't like
I
it.
didn't like it.
So he
So I have
he
to
gave-
talk about my experience with it. So I listened to it without the effect. And then when you did it, I listened to it a second time with the effect. And I was telling Kelley this. I had a visceral reaction to it. I could feel like the muscles in the back of my shoulders tightening as I was listening to it. And as the scene goes on, and that sound is there in the background, and like you said, it rises, and occasionally it comes up and it will go fall. And by the time that scene was over, I was like, yeah, I'm so glad that scene's over, because I was tense. I was very,
Right.
it created that feeling of being in the middle of that.
And that's the way it is when you're in those things. I mean, it's like this really low grade pressure of, because what's going to happen until it happens, right? And then there's no turning back. That's, yeah.
Well, I supply the pressure in this relationship, so it works. So if you could write like a babbling brook scene, I can use some water next time, then we can all relax with that.
We'll get on it. There's rain in the next one, so maybe we
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, it doesn't rain in Southern California.
Not much
Well,
further either.
right, right. Nice seeing you again.
Nice to
Take care.
see you.
So that's kind of the story on the that's the kind of the story on the fire, at least the effect of the fire. And it was interesting because he didn't, it's well, and we've kind of covered this, but he was sort of adamant that he didn't want to do it, and that he didn't think it was good, that he thought it was too repetitive. And it really was, I felt, and you agreed, and you're always the final word in this, that the tension that it created was really what we were looking for.
And I think that he thought it was repetitive. I think that's part of what creates that tension. Like, there's no escaping this. It's just surrounding you. And when you're listening to it with headphones on, you're immersed. I mean, it's right around you, and you feel like, it's there. And so I think that in a way, if it's repetitive, that helps that effect, that anxious feeling that you get from listening to it.
I think fans are going to be really excited about this. There's so much in this book. There's, aside from the fact, just the experience of the fire itself, there's the way the community reacts to it. There's there's still the mystery that is that we haven't even touched on, right? There is a body in this, this cozy mystery. And then there's the development of Rebecca, of the character of Rebecca, Zion's best friend. So you'd mentioned you'd opened this with the fact that there's been a year since the last Zion. And I was reminded of that fact when one of our review team, the Storyteller review team, we had just given out another audiobook that we produced to the review team to listen to and review. And they've been asking for months now, when's the next Zion? When's the next Zion? And I really think, even though it's been that length of time, this book is just packed. It's like 3 or 4 books in one. Did you intend that?
I've told you before, I have a fascination with peripheral characters. That sometimes they become almost more interesting to me than the main characters do. The main characters to me are always kind of the foils for what happens, and so I always intended to make Rebecca and David more complex, and I intended that with this one. The fire, I had always intended for the fire to come into this because I thought it was I just think, being where they're located in the foothills, it would be a natural thing that they would have to eventually face. I don't know that I realized how complicated the murder would become, and it got more complicated. There were more suspects that came out of it than what I originally intended. I really intended that to be almost just the vehicle to advance the rest of the plot, and then that became its own kind of interesting dynamic, and the whole social construct of how we deal with our homeless and our mentally ill in this country became really fascinating to me, and I really wanted to explore that. Alvin O'Malley, who's one of the main characters in this, he was in some of the earlier books peripherally, and that idea of somebody who served their country and coming back, it's an age-old thing, isn't it, that we bring these people back, we have them go out and they fight for us, and they serve our country, and they give this sacrifice, and then we bring them back and they're basically discarded. It just torments me as somebody, I have an uncle who was in Vietnam and never able to re-enter society again, and in fact we don't even know where he is at this point. Those are tragic stories to me, and that became bigger than what I thought it would. That whole idea of how we handle everyone in that group that Tate goes out. The whole reason why Tate's out there is he goes out to rescue some people that are living in a rest stop out there, homeless. And all of those people are veterans, that he goes to meet. And I think that's one of the big shames, I think, of our country, is the way we handle
One of the lines from the book that stayed with me, Tate's there at the rest stop in chapter 5, and he meets these people and he's trying to gather these people and evacuate them. And the guy, Doug, that's sort of the leader of the group, said, he goes, we were just trying to get together and get undercover because we didn't know if anybody'd come for us.
Yeah.
And he says it so matter of factly, it's just, we
Yeah.
really didn't know if anybody would care. And I mean, we're seeing that way too much with the increased homeless from the pandemic and all the communities that want to help, but just not in their neighborhood.
Right.
You know, if it can't be in any neighborhood, then how are we going to help them? And I'm right there with you in terms of feeling a need to find a solution for these people. It's brother to brother. It's
No, it's exactly that. And the fact that we've spent so many years just saying not in our neighborhood, we just can't do that anymore. I mean, it's just not sustainable. If you remove just the human element of that, people deserve better, right? It's not sustainable in the sense that there's so many people now. I mean, you go down the freeways. I don't know about LA, but here you drive down the freeways and there's homeless encampments all along the freeways. We can't just keep saying it's somebody else's problem, because it's not somebody else's problem. And we can't keep turning a blind eye. And there's an answer, there's a solution to it. It's not acceptable enough to say, well, it's too big of a problem. We can't do that anymore. There has to be.
And you know what? The problem hasn't exploded, but not to the point that it's not solvable. Exactly. The number of homeless, we can still help. And LA has started right near one of the places where we walk our dog, our husky Claire. They've started a tiny home community, and complete with all of the facilities, but also the support services to help these people get their lives back in order. And it's really quite exciting. And I encourage anybody listening, if you don't know what I'm talking about, or if you're looking for a way to help, investigate tiny home communities, perhaps in your area or nearby, because there's, even just donations, whether it's time or money or objects, can
right.
be.
We were talking, so Elk Grove has a program started by a principal that I used to work with, and they bring people in and they bring them counseling and they give them job training and they give them clothes to be able to go out and do interviews with and things like that. And one of the people that I know, she was talking about, she goes and she volunteers, and she was talking about one of the people that came in was a young man who had just turned 18 and was in the foster system. And as soon as a young person turns 18 in the foster system, they're thrown out onto the street and they don't have any more support. And he didn't know what to do. He wound up homeless because he had been thrown out of his foster home. And he came to them and he got job counseling. He got clothes to be able to go to an interview. They gave him transportation to get to the interview, and he wound up getting a job and being able to get off the street. So it's not just people who, are stereotypical that we think of that don't want to be part of society. It's a myriad of reasons that people wind up homeless, and there is a solution for it. And there's programs that are doing really good work.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Well, I think it's really exciting that this book, I mean, it's funny because it really probably a whole nother behind the mic could be a topic of why this book took so long to come about. I mean, we fought hard to get this one out, and there were a lot of obstacles that got in our way. It was much longer writing and recording process than we're accustomed to. But it certainly was a labor of love, and we got it out, and it's very exciting. And I can't wait for fans to get their hands on it and start to get the feedback. I think it's a great way to pick the series up again.
Yeah, and again, I cannot stress enough, 4-day turnaround time, but from when you hit, finish to where they Audible brought it out at 4 days, just astronomical. Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you ACX. Thank you ACX Audible. Yeah.
So the book is out in ebook, print, and audiobook. So take your poison.
Yeah.
It's
Like to hear excerpts. Don't forget, there's I meant to mention this. This book is so funny. You have so many hits of humor in this. And if you'd like to hear some of them, remember that you can test out the book with more than one sample on SoundCloud, Storyteller Productions on SoundCloud. We've got at least 6 or 7 or 8 samples from the book, and you can give it a listen.
And our next big one is the final Peyton Pirates in Las Vegas. And we're hoping to do that towards the beginning of 2022.
Yep, great way to start a new year.
Absolutely, with Peyton.
Yep. And we may have something coming out in December, right? Kind of a
Have
surprise.
a surprise for our listeners in December. Yes. So be looking for that.
A
yeah.
present for our fans.
Exactly.
Yay.
All right, Kelley, thank you very much. And thank you, Bruce, wherever you are. And
He's gone.
and to all of our listeners, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, Kelley.
You too, Michelle. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for Hamilton and Hazen Behind the Mic. Visit authormlhamilton.net and kelleyhazennarrates.com to join our newsletters for more insider news and views. Today's episode is sponsored by Phoenix Publication Services, PPS, Digital Shepherds. Let us ignite your writing goals.